Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing another really fascinating guest today involved in creating a better tomorrow on some really interesting fronts. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Eric Olson, who is founder, chief operating officer, and chairman of Babson Diagnostics, which is a company that is looking to bring medically accurate blood testing into the retail pharmacy setting, ultimately empowering people to take charge of their health by, as they say, reimagining the entire blood testing process from ordering, collection, handling, on through analysis and reporting results, ultimately making it less invasive, more convenient and accessible, and patient-centered. Eric is a multi-decade veteran of the diagnostics industry. Prior to incubating Babson at Siemens Healthineers, Eric was Siemens VP of Portfolio and Product Management. He was responsible for their $3 billion global product portfolio of central laboratory technologies, also responsible for their various web properties and their billion-dollar e-commerce operations as global head of Siemens Clinical Lab Automation IT business, which advanced from number 2 to number 1 in market share during his tenure. Eric has an undergraduate bachelor's degree in biology from MIT, did his master's in tech management from here in Philly, University of Pennsylvania. And we're honored to have him with us. A lot of really interesting themes to get into today. Eric Olson, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Great to meet you, Ira. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you. Looking forward to getting into this topic today. Really enjoyed reading about you and sort of a couple decades that you spent at prior to Babson at Siemens, where you were basically involved in everything from marketing to R&D to automation to IT to innovation. Take us back to the beginning of the story, sort of pre-Babson, if you would, and tell us a little bit about the first couple decades of immersing yourself in the diagnostic business.
Yeah, I certainly spent a lot more time in the diagnostics industry than I ever planned to when I was a kid. It was a pretty cool coincidence that I fell into an industry that I ended up falling in love with. I'd always been a science kid, a math kid, and spent the majority of my early career in computer science, so developing software architecture, and then fell into diagnostics, which is this sleepy old industry that kids never dream of growing up to be in, and it doesn't get a lot of attention, but scientifically just has so much to offer, so much room for innovation, so many different fields of science involved, and an opportunity to be in a career that actually helps people. So I feel really fortunate to have gotten to spend so much time working on blood, even if it's a field that most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about.
Absolutely. And before we get into the company, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about history from the perspective of who Art Babson was, because he was clearly a luminary in terms of everything from the industrialization to the standardization of the industry to the development of all sorts of interesting reagents and assays. And I also noticed, sort of in reading about his history, that you're the second generation that was involved with him. Your father, I think, worked for him at one point too. Take us back and introduce us to all things Art Babson and what he meant to the industry.
Sure. I met Art Babson when when I was in high school, and he was already in his third or fourth generation of his career in diagnostics. He was a major inventor in the field. He developed the first human serum control. So the control materials that labs use today to make sure that they're delivering the correct results. That was a new concept in the 50s and the 60s. He invented the biochemical procedures for a lot of the serum enzyme tests that labs use today. So the actual chemical reactions that we use to detect problems with your organs based on certain enzymes ending up in your bloodstream. He figured out those chemical reactions, and even today, those are the same chemical reactions that we run in mega labs. But my dad was the third employee in a startup that Art had founded called Babson Technologies, and that ended up being the company that invented the Emulite, which is a major platform that changed diagnostics through the 90s and 2000s. Ultimately was acquired by Siemens. And back in high school, I got to intern for that company and develop some software for that company, be part of some of the very initial developments of the Emulite platform. It wasn't until much later that I had a full career in diagnostics and got to work with Art again. And that's when I was really exposed to his scientific approach. He was an incredible scientific thinker. He was a very casual and candid guy. So despite being this luminary, he was just a guy that loved to develop technology. And he really distinguished himself to me by the way that he experimented and the way that he discovered. He was endlessly creative, but what really made a difference was that when he invented something, he would go to his shop and he would build it, and he would try it, and he would see if it would work. And because he did that, he didn't spend any time in the ivory tower. He put everything into practice. He tried it. He figured out what worked and what didn't, and he iterated from there. So for me, that was really, really inspiring. There was no pretense to his science. He just wanted to do science, and he wanted to figure out the answers to these big questions the most efficient way that he could. So I found him to be a very inspiring person, and of course through the family relationship, he was a family friend and a mentor for many decades. So when we decided to create Babson Diagnostics, we decided to name the company after Art. And this was a time when we had a very innovative idea of a new way to take on the diagnostics industry. This was in the wake of Theranos and the public excitement about that. And it was about a very different approach and a very, very scientific approach. And we were faced with a decision on whether to name the startup company something that sounded like it came out of Silicon Valley, or something that sounded like it came out of science. So we chose to name the company Babson Diagnostics to go in the opposite direction of the hype.
And take us into a little bit of, and we'll get into sort of the process and some of the technologies. Take us into sort of the inception of the new, because you incubated it, because Siemens, is a giant organization that has this health imagining unit, sort of an internal venturing team, and I believe that you incubated it within that, which I think adds another. You have obviously great science and a great lineage there, but also now the respectability as well, that this isn't something, again, that you just mentioned, just this started out in Silicon Valley somewhere, but came out of a major player with the major venturing arm that knows this business. So talk a little about the early days of incubating this within a much larger corporate organization.
Yeah, we incubated the company for about 2 years inside of Siemens.
Yep.
And it is distinguished from your typical startup in that it did come from inside a big company, and it's also distinguished in that it was created by people who had spent decades working on blood testing technologies. We weren't a group of tech people that decided it would be interesting to see if we could revolutionize a new and foreign industry. So we spent a lot of time in labs, and we spent a lot of time with this kind of technology, and saw an opportunity to take advantage of some changes in technology. The idea started with David Stein, who's our CEO, and myself working as partners to incubate and develop some novel technology that could enable convenient capillary blood collection, but do it in such a way that you could get the correct result and do it at scale. So a scalable and accurate way to make capillary blood work. And it was fairly fortuitous that David and I had also worked on the last few generations of analyzers and assays that Siemens had developed, the same tools that go into big labs. And the company had some sort of accidental competitive advantages with those technologies that allowed us to work with smaller samples than other major lab equipment could. So the incubation that we did was, part of it was around the sample handling and what do you need to do to collect and preserve a small sample. And part of it was on the analytical side, and what do you need to do to accurately analyze small blood samples that's different from analyzing big blood samples. So we're able to solve those technical problems. We're able to bring the scientists from Siemens, the engineers from Siemens, the people that built labs from Siemens, and put our heads together to figure out how you would reimagine the value chain of how you get from blood that's inside the body to a correct lab result.
And so as you were just mentioning, and the sort of the name of the sort of the complete sort of ecosystem you're developing is called Better Way Blood Testing Ecosystem. A part of this being, as you were just mentioning, the microsampling and ultimately how the appropriate novel analytical tools are applied to that. The other part of it is this collection handling, retail access, let's say, and being a pharmacist, I've been amazed myself at all the way that the community pharmacy has changed over the years, from just dispensing pills to doing all this interesting stuff. Walk us through a little bit of what the Better Way is all about. Not just the microsampling, but sort of the entire process that you envisioned it today, or how things work.
Great. I'll do my best to step back and explain what the big picture of Better Way is, because like you mentioned, once you start getting into the detail and you see all the moving parts that are underneath it, it can get quite complex and difficult to explain. So stepping all the way back, the purpose of Better Way is as a blood testing service to provide a way that's more convenient and more pleasant for people to get their routine blood work done. So the same sort of blood tests that you'd go to your primary care doc for with your annual physical, or if you have a chronic disease, the routine monitoring that you need to do to stay on top of that. Better Way is a more convenient and pleasant way to get that blood work done. And the way that we make it more convenient and pleasant is by enabling people to get the blood work done at their retail pharmacy, at the local pharmacy. You go to the same place that you'd go to pick up your prescriptions or to get your vaccinations. And the same people that would do those things for you at your local pharmacy can collect your blood. And they can collect your blood from the tip of your finger, collecting 10 or 20 drops of blood. And they can do that because we provide them the sample collection devices, the sample preparation devices, the training, the infrastructure, the IT technology to be able to do that within their existing pharmacy environment. So from the customer's perspective, just like picking up a script, it should be get in, get your blood collected from your finger in a more pleasant way, and get out, and then get your results same day or next day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the promise for the end consumer, which is to take something that virtually everybody has to do, or everybody at least should be doing on a periodic basis, and taking some of the customer unfriendly aspects of that out, making the physical process of the needle and the blood something that is more appealing and or less terrifying for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it at a place that prioritizes customer service, and is a place that has professionals that you trust, has good parking, good access, and is a place where you feel that fits into your daily life.
And talk a little bit about, because one of the other milestones was the opening of your own clinical laboratory, this one in Austin, which is serving Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas-Fort Worth, built again to, as a component of the Better Way system, doing everything you were just mentioning in terms of the microsampling, studying the various analytical processes that go on. Walk through, if you would, or introduce us to your lab, because I know now you're out of the. I don't know if you're still also doing things with Siemens and BD, but this is your own standalone operation per that part of the process, correct?
Yes. BD and Siemens are very important suppliers to us, okay. And they provide specific components in addition to being our strategic partners.
Mm-hmm.
But Babson has brought a lot of technology to make that the end-to-end ecosystem work. So after you're at the pharmacy and we've collected blood using collection devices and sample preparation devices, those couriers have to bring all those samples back to a central laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
So we're making the collection part of the process decentralized, easy, and convenient, but we are centralizing the laboratory part. So our laboratory is a 21,000 square foot facility. It is similar to the very largest labs that you'd see around the country, the ones you've heard of, like LabCorp and Quest and big hospital labs. It's built like those. It's built with a lot of high throughput chemistry and hematology equipment that can process blood samples at very high throughput and at very low cost. So the business model of Babson and the way the Better Way functions is that the collection part is decentralized and convenient, mm-hmm. but the analysis part is centralized and it's high throughput and low cost. So we're trying to bring the best of those together. We're decentralizing the part that matters for the end customer and helps that fit into your lifestyle. But we run a big high throughput lab because our goal is not to make things more convenient by making things 10 times more expensive. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to make it more convenient by preserving the economics of the way that it works.
Mm-hmm.
So if you walk into our lab, you'll see a lot of long lines of high throughput equipment. For those of you who've never spent time in an analytical laboratory, picture some very large white machines that are the size of old school copy machines, all chained together in long strings, because you're basically running a factory. You're running a factory that takes blood samples as input and produces test results as output.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it in this type of environment, a professional high complexity CLIA laboratory is how we make sure that we can produce results with the best technology, with the best accuracy, the best precision that's possible, with professional oversight of our laboratory techs, our laboratory managers, supervisors, and directors who watch over the process and can ensure that we're delivering high quality, but also can do it very, very quickly so that we can keep the costs low.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to, because again, you referred to obviously everything you're doing is sort of the science first approach, which obviously in the aftermath of the Theranos debacle is obviously something that's needed. Talk a little bit about just for education purposes, clearly, and just thinking, I go to the doctor and I do this complete blood cell count and I get my lipids and they do the PSA testing because I have prostate cancer in my family and so forth and so on. What's the process on the end with regard to your central facility? Because I know that was one of the things that Theranos didn't do. They never got any of this thing validated and approved. But for each of these tests, do you have to go through some FDA inspection that says, hey, we're doing this right or not? How does that all work? And just enlighten us a bit on that, because I think that, once again, the science first component of this is extremely important.
Sure. Well, Theranos, first of all, is it's a story. It's more a story of fraud
Right.
than it is a story of diagnostics, I think.
Yeah.
And as much as I appreciate Theranos getting our industry on the front page and getting some attention to it, they really did make quite a mess of it.
Yeah.
And there were numerous failings in terms of technology and in terms of legality of what was going on there that can really cloud the issue.
Sure.
But yes, it is extremely important to in this industry to do things in the right order,
Mm-hmm.
which means you develop a technology, then you evaluate whether it works, and then once you've validated that it works, you can use it to test people. And Theranos was kind of a case study in how to do those things in the wrong order. For us, we decided to pursue a fundamentally different business model from what Theranos did. Theranos was focused on collecting capillary blood and developing machines that could miniaturize the testing. So tabletop machines that could be put out at pharmacies to perform the tests. So it was about taking that that multi-million-dollar laboratory and shrinking it down to a box that could perform the test, kind of like a tricorder in our imaginations. And there are fundamental issues with that. When you miniaturize a machine like that, you forfeit accuracy, you forfeit precision, you forfeit reliability, you forfeit cost, you forfeit menu, and Theranos ran into a lot of those realities of the physics of diagnostic testing, and that's what necessitated a lot of the fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So we pursued a different technological path, and pursuing that path right does involve a lot of clinical studies and a lot of regulation, as it should. So we've run more than 30 different clinical studies here. We've tested more than 3,000 clinical study subjects. We've run more than 700,000 tests as part of our clinical research, and that's because we need to validate that our better way blood testing service produces accurate results and performs as it's supposed to perform. But we additionally need to demonstrate that each of the technical components underneath of that produces the right results. So we have to perform validation studies to pursue FDA clearance for our sample collection device. We need to do validation studies for our hand warmer, for our sample preparation device, for each of the different tests that we run. Each of those different tests is an R&D project. So producing all of the validation data to show that each of the components of our technology works individually and then demonstrate that it works in concert is a whole lot of testing. We have regulation from FDA, which governs the medical devices that we work on.
Yep.
We have regulation from CMS, which operates CLIA. That's the body that regulates clinical laboratories in the U.S. So yes, we have inspections, we have submissions. We do a lot of work to keep our licensure up to date and make sure our processes are sound.
Excellent. And that message is obviously getting through because, you have attracted a decent amount of funding from the investment community, and it's nice to. I said, unfortunately, the waters were muddied, but the fact that you are selling this new story and getting traction is a testament to what you're all about. So that's quite exciting. What are some of the next steps here? I mean, in terms of expanding the footprint into, obviously there's a lot of pharmacies out there. There's a lot of locations around the country that could use centralized testing facilities. Where are you going from here?
Sure. And before I get to that, just to comment on the way that we approach quality, it wasn't so much of a decision. We didn't really know how to do it otherwise. So we come from the medical device industry. We're people that developed the analyzers that are used across the world. So there wasn't really a different way from building an appropriate quality system and following it in a compliant way. So just to put the point on,
sure.
When you've been in the blood industry for your career, it's pretty clear what's necessary to develop an accurate test. So it's not a marketing decision or a commercial decision on how are we going to sell this thing. The quality system is one of the first things that we built in this company before we were past our second employee. We had a quality system that was in place, so it's part of the fabric of who we are. But as far as how this gets commercialized and how this grows, we built our first lab to be, like you said, roughly Texas size. So the right scale to be able to cover an area the size of Texas, which for us is kind of the farthest you'd ever want to drive. That's about how big Texas is, and that's about the right diameter of a region for us to be able to provide really good service and have people be able to count on getting the results back reliably and quickly. So we'll be launching the Better Way service in 2024, and it is going to start in Texas and grow from there. So a lot of regulatory work that'll be happening between here and there. Some announcements about which pharmacies we're going to be in first, and then announcements about where we're going to be after Texas. So roughly similar sized regions that we'll be expanding to around the country. We do see the U.S. as our biggest opportunity. We will do business outside of the U.S., but to begin with, U.S. is where the most of our focus is.
Awesome. Eric, while I have you, one of the things I noticed that when you were at Siemens, one of your last roles was a vice president of what's called Disruptive Diagnostics, and you were looking at sort of clearly disruptive business models, and Babson is clearly executing on that. What else do you see? What else strikes your interest in terms of maybe things that Babson isn't going to get involved in today, but are part of sort of this disruptive ecosystem? We profile a lot of smart home, smart healthcare in the home type stuff. Are you thinking at all about diagnostics and wearables in the home? We do a lot on sort of this biohacking space that, while there's all the standard health tests, there's a lot of other things that people are looking for, whether it's vitamin D levels or this hormone, that hormone for health, longevity, whatever the case may be. What else gets you excited in the space?
Well, those two are certainly very interesting parts of diagnostics. We've also seen a lot of incredible advances in oncology and genetic testing.
Mm-hmm.
Other types of home testing has been very interesting. Home testing is something that is on the roadmap for Babson. It's something that we've issued some announcements about. Home testing to date has been focused on a lot of kind of curiosity testing. You could call it wellness, maybe biohacking curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of the reason that it's been a struggle is that some of these consumer oriented tests are they're getting a bad name because they're either in the category of tests that, number one, a health insurance company wouldn't pay for because the health insurance company doesn't think it's worth it or has the medical benefit,
Mm-hmm.
or that it's a type of testing that produces results that a doctor wouldn't trust.
Got it.
So neither of those is really a place that Babson wants to be. We're focused on the on clinically equivalent tests, on medically useful tests that are worthwhile for a health insurance company to pay for and trustworthy from a doctor's perspective. So one of the reasons that we're not in home testing yet is because it's very, very difficult to deliver accurate test results, and the more chaos that surrounds the collection and the handling of a sample, the more difficult it is to keep your results accurate and precise. So the technology hasn't been there yet,
Mm-hmm.
and we're working on figuring out how far we can go and what we can accurately report versus what's not the right tool for the job.
Got it.
So when we're in the home, it's going to be with medical grade tests.
Yeah.
So we're working on technologies that are going to get us there. As far as biohacking and other wellness kinds of tests, I firmly believe that there's a ton of data about our bodies that we could make good use of and be healthier if we knew more about. So I always come down on the side that more information about one's health is better than less information about one's health. So I'm all on board with folks that like to get all of the data about what's in their system in order to optimize it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think there's a lot that the medical community hasn't yet figured out. What's medically valuable versus what's not.
Yeah.
So I'm a strong proponent of the medical community doing the research to figure out how to integrate that into real healthcare. Mm-hmm. So when doctors ask you for results from your watch to monitor your heart or to monitor your sleep, I think that's a great thing. I think it's great when doctors start to take in more data or data that's not typically been considered to be medical data. Mm-hmm. To help you stay healthier. So I'm a strong proponent of bringing more of that kind of non-medical data into the medical scene.
Got it. Well, no, I appreciate your insight on that. And as you were saying with the medically relevant stuff, it's going to be interesting to see again how this all evolves, especially as we get further into these topics like distributed clinical trials and some of the other disruptive themes that may not be here yet, but are probably coming. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. Eric, what else is happening in terms of, we're almost at 2024 now. Obviously, you got a lot of work that you're doing on both the ecosystem front, the lab. Anything else we should know about as we get ready for 2024, either related to public stuff per the company or stuff for you, conferences, talks, any place that we're going to be seeing you, running into you on the conference circuit, and anything else I didn't touch on that you want to mention, please.
Sure. 2024 is going to be big for us. So it's the whole process of us coming to market. So there will be a lot of announcements related to where and how we're going to be coming to market, and you'll see me pop up in a lot of those announcements. As far as big technology announcements, we talked about some of the diagnostic concepts that are kind of forever that next big thing, whether it's a wearable or it's a greater consumer access or some kind of miniaturized testing device. The technology that Babson's going to be focused on in 2024 is less about that, and it's more about making diagnostics accessible for regular people for the routine tests that we should be getting done. I'm a lot more concerned about the person that should be getting their routine blood tests, should be monitoring their cholesterol, should be monitoring their diabetes, should be monitoring their general wellness and understanding their basic blood levels, than I am about the person that's optimizing for let's say longevity or biohacking or pushing the limits of the human body. There are so many millions of people that are not getting basic health care. That are not able to that have undiagnosed chronic disease that just need an easier way to get their blood work done. So I think you're going to see that the majority of the technologies we're talking about in 2024 are going to be focused on getting the basics done. Once we can get the basics done and get the general population to a healthier place, then I think you'll see us turn our focus to some of these more advanced or fringe or niche opportunities.
Excellent. Very exciting. I look forward to continue to follow you and the evolution of the company. Clearly, you're doing this right. And between the success you've had, the investors, obviously the proper incubation and science behind it, you're clearly on the right path. And again, I look forward to seeing what happens in 2024. Again, for everybody that's going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the various podcast networks or watching on our YouTube channel, again, you've been listening to Eric Olson, founder, chief operating officer, and chairman of Babson Diagnostics, doing amazing things to reimagine the blood testing process, making it less invasive, more convenient, accessible, and patient-centered. Eric, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come talk to us, educate us on everything you're up to. Obviously, thank you for what you do. And as we like to say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow via what you do. Really a nice story, and I look forward to continue to follow you.
Thanks very much, Ira. It's been a great pleasure.